Well, this is Nick D'Augusto, or Nicholas, depending on whether or not you want to be formal.
That's right.
Mr.
If I'll
Nicholas
allow you to be
D'Augusto.
friendly, you know, because I'm tough.
What years did you study?
I was here, so I moved out to LA in 2002, which is when I graduated college, and then I found you in 2003. It must have been, I know it was the beginning of that next year. And then that was in the old place on Fairfax.
It was over there?
Yeah.
On Fairfax?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I've been, I was a part of the crew that helped you move over here.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay, I didn't do as much work as other people, so it's easy to forget that I was one of the guys that kind of helped. Not really. I hung around, I gave some people some beers.
You're one of the guys that, like, the foreman comes up to him and he says, they carry twice as much as you do. You only care about half as much as they do. How come? He said, well, I guess they're too lazy to make 2 trips like me.
That's right. That's exactly right. Listen, in the long run, they're just going to get tired faster. That way I have energy. I have energy when I go home from work. You know, I like to save a lot of energy so I can relax. Yeah, so we used to do it at the old place. And then I was there for like a year. I think we were over there for a little while. And then I think it was about halfway through my time with you. I studied with you for 3 years. I did the 2 years, and then I did the graduate year.
Do you have a procedure that you go through when you go to the set? You plan out everything, like time for your preparation, time for this, and you... Oh, wow.
Yeah,
because there's a lot to do, isn't there?
Yeah. I mean, it's actually... The answer to that is yes, although it sort of changes depending on the set.
Yeah.
But it's a good question in that, like, you can even see here, right? Like, I brought a baggie of all the things that I think I might need. You know, I'm like one of those guys that's always kind of, you know, I carry a bag with me to
like
set.
a magician.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I carry a lot of doves, a lot of live doves. And I carry, I think, at least 47 scarves with me wherever I go.
Independent activities?
Yes, that's right. I like to put scarves on doves. That's what I like. That's what I do. If I don't do it in time, then my mother dies. Yeah. So you know, I do. The best thing I can say about that is like is just preparation. You know, I mean, I like in my bag I have everything I need, you know, from the fact that we all carry around our cell phone chargers to the fact that I always make sure I have like a toothbrush and I have any medication that I need, allergy medication or any of that kind of crap that you just sort of protecting for any surprise. You know what I mean? You don't want to have to you don't get a lot of time on set, you know, so if you have 2 or 3 minutes and you feel something that's going to distract you, it's in your head and I can't let it go or something.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? I need to have all these things so that I know that I have the place to get that stuff whenever I need it. But that speaks partly to my own neuroses. But
speaking of which, no.
Yeah.
Anna Strasberg, Strasberg's wife when he was alive, she's still alive. She said to Lee, he was doing a film, and he said to her, "Can you run home and get my other socks?" And she said, "I don't know if we have time, Lee." And he said, "Well, try." And she said, "Well, they won't see your socks." He said, "That's not the point. The point is I know the socks that I have on, and these are wrong."
Right. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, you need to tie that. I mean, you have to. I mean, you guys are doing that in this class. I mean, that's where I learned a lot. I mean, that's where I learned all of these. I mean, that it's too easy. It's too quick to kind of the point I'm trying to make is not enough time to talk about how influential the class was for me in this exact moment, but it's important to have all these things that give you as much of the reality as you can, and because there's just so much around you that the less you have to block out, the better, right? We always know that the camera's going to be there. That's something you get in the habit of blocking out, but the things you anchor for yourself, even though if they're not on camera or they're not useful in the scene, quote unquote. Things like socks. That character wasn't wearing those socks, then you feel like there's a part of you that's on the stage. When I'm wearing the socks, I don't want to feel like these are the socks I put on right when I got out of bed or whatever and wore to the set, and they have the phone call that I had on the way to the set attached to them. You know what I mean? I want the socks that the guy is in, and then that way only the things that I associate with what's going on in the scene are associated with the things that are attached to me at that point. The more I can use all of these like little tools to strip away whoever I was before, the better. One of the things that took me a really long time to learn on set, and I think this is where you can start to get some of the insight into why you hear about actors that are just notoriously shitty to other people on set or this kind of thing, is because you are fighting all of these distractions, constant distractions, people coming up, okay, this, and then your hair, and it's all within the 5 minutes before they say action. And so, part of it is accepting that into the process, understanding that that's a part of the process. You can't control that. So that they have a job to do. They're there to make you look better. That's a good thing for you. So part of it is accepting these things and coming to understand that they're just a part of it. But the other thing is knowing that you can also tell people, like, I'm okay right now. Like, I don't, you don't have to say it in a shitty way, but you can say, like, it's okay, I don't need anything. Or someone comes up to talk to you, it's another actor, or it's someone from the crew who has no connection to the tension that you're about to walk into. They're like, hey, they'd bring up a joke from earlier or something like that. And it's like, you want to be cool with the crew, you want to be cool to people around you. It doesn't mean you have to go into that joke right there. You know what I mean? You just say, like, now's not a good time, and then go back later and explain it if you feel like it, or don't explain it. But you just, people aren't coming up to you to try and fuck with you. It feels like that sometimes because so many people are coming at you, but it's remembering that you have the power to say, it's cool, I need about 5 minutes right now to myself. And a lot of times, I will spend a lot of time on set, I will get everything ready as soon as possible. I'll find the makeup person, I'll find the hair person, and I'll get there immediately. I'll get there on set in like 15, 20 minutes before we're starting. I'm at the makeup and hair people. Like, do I look good? Is everything good? Because I want them to be around me the least amount of time possible right before the scene starts. And so then I go off by myself and I do the things, I do my lines in my head a little bit to make sure I know them, and then I sort of like take, I sort of take some breaths and I try to get out whatever it is, and then when it's time, I just want to walk onto set and not be distracted. So those are just some of the tricks that you gain just from like going through it, and you'll find that, but just remember that you have the power to control the situation, and you can do it politely. You know what I mean? You that's a big thing that I like to stress, because part of me is that I grew up an immense people pleaser, but also I feel like that tension doesn't serve me, Some people, maybe they feed off that tension. They feed off creating, antagonizing people, and you might have seen other actors in your experience that have done that. And I'd actually be interested to know if you do think of anyone like that. That liked to kind of get angry with people because that fed them. But it doesn't feed me, Do you have any experiences like that? Any actors that they were kind of like, they just...
I can't remember.
Yeah. Yeah, and most of my experiences is that people are really great.
When you were on Masters of Sex, you had to do very sexual scenes with your leading lady. Did you talk to her before? I want to make it look real. I don't want to offend you.
Before the pilot, we sat and talked a lot because there was a lot of stuff in the pilot. Not only did we have the sex scene in the pilot, and it's a very serious sex scene because the character goes down on me. Now, she just goes off the camera, so none of that actually happens, but, that's what we're going through. And and then also I also hit her, in that pilot as well.
You know
So
what?
I hit her. My character hits her in that pilot. So that pilot was both sides. What sort of understanding the boundaries on both ends. But the sexual stuff, like but this is also who I am in my life, and you'll find this more as you listen to me. I talk a lot, and I get very specific to the point of inundating people with it. But I don't like there to be any. Once again, it speaks to this idea that I don't want to feel in any way that I've offended or crossed a line, because that doesn't help me. Some people, they want to let it be mysterious and kind of free and then go with it. And if they grab her ass in the scene or something and she's not expecting it, that gives them the reaction that they want. But those things are too, the words like violation can come in so quickly in those environments, And actors in general are mostly like, we're all pretty open. We understand what we're doing. So both the women and the man and the woman, they get what's going on. But I was always would always sit down with everybody. And it had happened like three or four times in that series. I was with different women. And all four of them had to take their tops off. You know what I mean? Like that was a pretty provocative show. And so,
For you.
Yeah. And for a very small section of America. But I guess the point is, they all thanked me for it afterwards, because it first of all, you have a lot of power when you're the regular on the series. And they're, like in Lizzie's situation, she's the bigger character than me, So she has a lot of power. She has more of the power in that dynamic. But the other three girls were all either recurring characters or smaller characters. And so we all have that desire to want to not be the one that isn't cool, whatever, that isn't down to do what's necessary. So I think they really appreciated me sitting down and being like, what are the levels here? And this is what I'm not going to do. And this is what we can do, And Lizzie's very, very foul-mouthed and very, very funny. And she was like, in the first time we were all sitting down, she actually started laughing at me because I'm doing this, like talking this out to such a degree. This is a girl who's already done this shit with other guys on screen and stuff. And she was like, just don't suck on my nipples, man. Just don't suck on my nipples. Because that's a fucking porno. And I was like, was not planning that, and I will not do that. So that sounds good. Very funny. Very funny. That's Lizzie in a nutshell.
We were doing streetcar once, and the girl playing my wife, she came up to me and she said, "Listen, you." Yeah. She said, "I'm Stella. You're Stanley. But I'm Mimi Cousins, and you're Bill Alderson. And Bill Alderson is hurting Mimi Cousins."
Wow. What did she say was going on?
When I grab her.
Oh, it's too physical. Huh? Was that one of your first experiences, like having to kind of walk that line between what's real for you and what is not, what's not real, what's too far on the stage?
I had to, in that part, I had to release the brute in me for Stanley Kowalski. Mm-hmm. And I did. And the director said, "I've created a monster."
Right.
I did.
Yeah. Were you able to, were you pissed that she said that to you, or were you able to let it go and do what she needed?
I was put off.
I don't know if I'm sure you guys have, if you've been around here long enough, you know that everybody, if you talk to people like me that have been around, and then talk to people like me that are older than me that studied with Bill earlier, they're always like, "You get the easy Bill." Have you guys heard that before? Like people being like, "Bill was a son of a bitch." He actually, for me, I think that I was like some of that first crop of people that got like the Bill who was chilling out. But I do remember in my time there, he threw out probably 6 or 7 people out of the class. Has he thrown anybody out of your class?
Yeah.
He did throw somebody out?
Not this class, I don't think, but my class was 80% of them.
Yeah, what were they doing?
They just left.
They left, and then there was like 4 or 5 that were
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just don't, they're not about the work.
Yeah.
And the ones that leave are just like, they just want a free lunch ticket or a signed check, as he would say.
Yeah.
It's usually about the work, or not being able to take a critique.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was a big thing that we used to do. The reason I brought this up is because talking about that line between what feels real to you and what's hurting the other person, and that's a line. You have to find that line. This is you want to bring. Acting is being truthful under imaginary circumstances, but these are imaginary circumstances. You don't need to really physically hurt the person to hurt them. And you don't need to whatever hurt them. I've been doing a lot of air quotes. It's just gonna be like there's gonna be a great little cut together video of Cés. I just saw an auto tune on Modern Family making fun of it. It's just gonna be a bunch of you don't need to hurt them. There was guys that I remember they were throwing chairs and putting holes in the wall and people kicking things, and I remember there was a time that you just had enough with this guy. You were just like, get out, get out of here. We don't need to see this constant unleashing of this violence all the time, But I think that you can come, this work as you go into it, you're trying to explore the edges of what's feeling real to you on stage. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's pushing or playing up things or dousing the flame in, kerosene to try and force it to be something. And I don't know, you find that for yourself. Hopefully you'll all find that for yourself. I think that was a big part of it for me. I came in not knowing how to connect real feelings to being on the stage, being very in my head about it. I'll tell you a joke I always tell, or it's an anecdote, it's true, that that was a part of my first early training. And I've said this a bunch of times in front of Bill, but I came up on stage at one point. I was doing an exercise, and Bill, it finished or something, or Bill stopped it, and he told the other actor that was in it to go sit down. And he came up next to me and he goes, "All right, everybody, I'm Nick. Nick, you're me. Nick, you're the other actor in the scene. I'm Nick, everybody. I'm Nick. Push me. Whoa! Whoa! And it was the message was very clear. Nick, you're not letting yourself really be pushed. Nick, you're acting like you were pushed, But then there's the other side of that, which I was talking about earlier, which is that, you don't have to hit somebody to push them. You know what I mean? There is a give where, as actors, we understand that my job is to be pushed. So let them push me. You know what I mean? Don't let this idea that I'm in a fight, if I was in a fight, I wouldn't move if he pushed me. No, you're required to be pushed also. You know what I mean? So that's the line that we have to walk. Okay. So I take you into my arms to dance. I had a big smack of you right on your kisser.
Kenny?
Well, isn't that what you do, this young student you're so nuts about?
Not in the middle of the dance floor where everybody can see.
Oh, sure. This young student, he's very impulsive. He doesn't care what people think.
Kenny.
Then he says, Lila, darling, I've got a little room in an attic where we can be alone together. I'm not Lila.
Stop it, Kenny.
Oh, come on. Aren't we playing anymore?
No. I don't
Take
think-
care of yourself. I was doing, as I've gone through this process, I've been studying Alexander technique recently, which has been really, really good for me. It's been really, I never really learned, I was very kind of humiliated, frankly, because I've been like a professional actor for a while, and I had to finally admit to myself that I never really truly learned how to use my voice the right way. And frankly, I'm still in the process of doing that. So when you saw that I got the pillow there, that's because I need to sit as straight as possible. And I need to be as relaxed and have this happening as much as possible, because for years, I was just like this all the time. How you guys doing? You know, what's up? Everything is coming from up here. You know what I mean? I feel comfortable in this spot. I don't know why. You know, but I'm a tall guy. You know, so I fold in on myself. So I'm like creating these pressure points in my vocal structure. You know what I mean? So I was up for a friend's wedding. He had like karaoke the night before the wedding, and I did this just amazing rendition of Aerosmith's "What It Takes." Do you know that song? Tell me what it takes to let you go. Gets out. But I started screaming like Steven Tyler, and by the end of it, I had screamed to the point where no sound was coming out of my vocal cords. And ever since that point, I've been on a journey trying to figure out how to get my voice back, how to essentially rediscover that. And the reason I bring this up is sometimes when you are on stage, it feels real to scream, and you scream in the wrong way. That's something that we all have to work on, how to scream so that it's real and you're not in your head about it, but that you're not damaging yourself. That's one thing. You know, it's not a cliche when people talk about your instrument. I don't think I ever really learned that. I didn't go to a conservatory training in college. You know, this was my acting training, but that also means I never had voice training, or, you know, I didn't take a lot of like dialect training like you would have taken. And that stuff caught up to me. So I'm telling you now, remember to keep study here for, you know, study your time here, and then remember to study and, you know, teach yourself other things too, because there are a lot of aspects of your performance and of your instrument that need to be taken care of beyond just having the technique of the training down. You know, they all have to come together. You mean like the stuff I'm shooting right now or whatever?
Yeah.
I'm happy to sing the praises of my work here. You know, I feel like it was when I started doing repetition work, for me, it felt, a lot of people get frustrated with it. You know, I was maybe frustrated trying to figure out how to do it properly, but I learned very early, like, I was really interested that this felt like how I break down how I talk to people around me, you know? And that felt like like a light bulb went off for me. Just that feeling like now every conversation I'm having is the work, essentially. If you just take a second to like check in with what you're doing, you know, when you're in your real life, all of a sudden just like put yourself on stage for a second, you know what I mean? And then be like, oh, right, yeah, now I'm doing the work all of a sudden. Air quotes again. Now I'm doing the work all of a sudden, right? I'm just talking to someone. I'm talking to my fiance, or I'm talking to my friend, you know, and my fiance is just like, really, she's upset about this thing that her friend did, you know? And I'm sitting there listening, and I'm, you know, how am I reacting? How does it make me feel? And I do that a lot now, you know, I do. And I feel like this class tuned me into just always be paying attention to how you're talking all the time, because that's how you need to be talking on stage, you know? And obviously things on stage are heightened, or you take the heightened moments of your life and put them on stage. But I don't feel like there's a blend between film and television. I'm sorry, television and stage. To me, it's the same. The work is the same. The Meisner work is the same. I still write out all my lines in every audition I go out on. I could show you, I could bring stacks of that stuff. And I still have a yellow notepad paper, and I've adapted it to sort of fit what I need it to fit. The only things I do that I've adjusted to it is when they're big chunks of dialogue, I still kind of break out the beats is what I do. I write down all of my dialogue, and then I break out the major beats. Like if I have like a really long monologue in the middle of a scene, I'll draw like a line through that section, just so that when I'm memorizing, I know, okay, that's the end of that big section, and then I'll go on. So
you had to talk a lot on Gotham and fast.
Yeah. I get cast in those roles a lot. You know, I mean,
What you said in an email? You said you didn't have much time. Was that shot in New York?
It was shot in New York, yeah. So he's great. You know, he watches all my stuff still, and it was great. I got an email from him. It was like he's always been very complimentary and very supportive, and but on this one he was like, you did a really good job. You looked a little tense, you know. You know, don't worry about it. You'll relax into it. You know, don't worry about it. And I was kind of like, son of a. But it's good, you know. It's good that there's somebody. I always appreciate that he's no bullshit. You know what I mean? You don't come to your acting teacher you want no bullshit with your acting teacher. So, and they said, well, we've been trying to find Harvey Dent. Could you come in tonight for Harvey Dent? I mean, this was like at 4:00 in the afternoon. And I was like, well, how many pages? There's 7 pages of lawyer dialogue. I was like, can you give me till tomorrow morning? You know, and so I went home that night. I was going to go watch a movie with my lady, and as she's expected at this point, it's like, babe, instead of going to this movie, is it okay if I memorize words from 8 until midnight and then you read the scene over with me? Is that cool? And then, so she's like, yeah, that's fine. So that's what I did. I mean, I went home and I'll write out all my dialogue, and I'll see I had 2 full yellow pad pages of just my words, totally full, that I had to memorize before an audition at 8:30 the following morning. The truth is, like, when I take on those challenges and I do a good job, and in this case, you know, I got the job, I'm really proud of myself. You know what I mean? It feels good to put in all the work. Sometimes you put in all the work and you don't get anything. You know what I mean? That happens 99% of the time. But you don't get anything unless you put in the work, you know? So it's tough. I mean, you know, it's getting the job and feeling good on it. You know, when he sort of looks at you and goes like, no, that's the scene, you know? I don't know, does he still do that for you? That's whenever I knew I did a good job, it's like, that's the scene. That's the scene. I think he just said I was amazing. You live for those moments, right? And you don't get there unless you really put in the work. I'm telling you, you know, there are days where you're not going to be able to memorize every line, but find the moments where it's okay to look at the page. Always memorize the moments where you need to be looking at someone. If you have an hour, you know, to prepare, and you're looking through it, and there's a moment where you know it's an emotional moment, or you're telling something to someone, make sure you know that moment, you know? Make sure you know that that's not the moment I'm going to be thinking. That's the moment I'm going to be in it. And if every other line I have to look down at the page to get it out, that's okay, you know?
That's very good.
Yeah. That's because those are the moments that get you the job, you know? But of course, like for me, I don't want to think at all. I don't want to think at all. So I memorize the whole damn thing, you know? And in Harvey Dent, I went in there and I sat down. And also I take it as a challenge because I think, look, these guys are going to require me sometimes, which they do in television. They'll give you the scene the night before, even while you're shooting, you know? I mean, I remember one time on Masters of Sex, the shooting schedule was very strange. Usually people in my level, I was like the 4th lead in that show. So Lizzie and Michael are carrying the show, right? And they're mostly the people shooting all day long. But what they'll like to do is they like to give them a day off when they can. But what that requires is basically putting when you look at a show, if you have 2 leads, there aren't very many scenes where neither of those leads are in a scene, right? Well, they'll put all of those scenes onto like a day of shooting so that the both of them can kind of have a day off and relax for a second and like recharge. Well, I had a big the secondary storyline was very much about me that episode. And so 2 days before this day of shooting, I got the new script, but it happened to be like they put my day on the first day of the next shooting episode. So I had about 48 hours to memorize 4 scenes and work on 4 scenes, and I shot all day that day and then didn't shoot it all the rest of the episode. Like my entire role for that episode was put on one day. And it's just like that, like I've got 2 days, and it's not just an audition at this point, you know? Now this is my role, you know? This is like the thing, this is the biggest job I've had. This is this thing I'm so precious to me. You know, you don't have a choice, you know? I can't look, I had to know every line, you know? I mean, I can't not know every little thing about this. So you just drop everything, you know? For 2 straight days, all I did was just pound words into my head until I couldn't take it anymore. And then, you know, take breaks and analyze what the hell I was saying and analyze what I needed to do and understand the stakes as best I could and then go in there and try to just let it loose. But there were times where I didn't walk away feeling good. There was a scene in it for sure that I remember I really wanted to do well and I just couldn't get there. It was kind of like an emotional moment too, and I was exhausted and it was another long monologue that day, and I just didn't have it all the way, you know? And I remember being so frustrated with myself. And the thing is it turns out fine. You know, nobody really sees it, but to me, I think opportunity lost, you know? I guess I say that as a way of going, you're never going to get away from that. You know what I mean? That's a part of what this process is. Everybody else is on a deadline. Casting directors are on a deadline. Producers are on a deadline. Everybody's afraid of losing their job. Everybody can lose their job. It's not like they're against you. They're not trying to screw me over. They just don't have any time, you know? So with the Gotham thing, Friday morning I went out for it. I was actually shooting that day. That's why I had to go in at 8:30 because I had to be to work at 9:30. Tuesday I get the job. Wednesday the contract gets finalized because there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens at that point that's out of your control. And then that you just have to accept or not take the job. So I took the job. And that's Wednesday. Thursday, I flew to New York. Friday, I met people. They gave me a haircut. They put me in suits. And then basically, I spent all Saturday and Sunday occasionally watching a little football and then memorizing. I probably memorized for about 6 or 7 hours each day, walking back and forth in my hotel room, flipping a coin. And because I'm not left-handed, and I had to flip the coin left-handed because that's every picture I ever saw of Two-Face. You know, every picture is with his left hand. So I asked them, they said, it's cool, you can flip it with your right hand, but you know how, I know what I'm like, and because I'm a comic fan, you know, and if you see like a little delineation from it, like they would eat me alive with that. So I had to flip with my left hand and talk, and then Monday, I shot all day. It was just like that moment I told you about, because what had happened was they'd taken so long to find the actor to fill Harvey Dent. They'd moved all of Harvey Dent's scenes to the last 2 days of that episode. So Monday, I shot 3 scenes. Tuesday, I shot 2 scenes. And then Wednesday, I shot a scene for the following episode. But, you know, I had 10 days from the minute I found out about the audition to putting it all down on tape. And that's everything from the audition, dealing with the contracts, wrapping my head around leaving town, flying across the country, dealing with jet lag and nerves, and then memorizing everything and diving in. And like, I feel really good about it, but it's true. I was really tired, and I was really, and also you have to remember, like, when you're recurring, and I've been this, when you're like a guest star in an episode, no one expects you to be like the regulars, you know? To be like the regulars on the show. You're a guest star in an episode. I've done a bunch of shows like Cold Case and, you know, all these shows where I'm like the victim of the episode or something. And you come on set, you're going to work for 3 or 4 days. It's a great part, a lot of fun stuff to do, but no one expects, you don't try to become best friends with anybody. You don't have to worry about the choices I make now, are they going to affect my character 2 years down the line? You're going to be there for 4 days and you're going to leave. And that's it. 4 days if you have a really big role. A lot of times you're there for a day or two. And, with this, I had to walk into a show as if I'd been there kind of from the beginning. These guys had that really long process of shooting during a pilot. They'd all gotten to know each other. There's that camaraderie on set. I had to walk in as if I was walking into Masters of Sex. I had to walk in as if I was a regular on the show. And I didn't know anybody on the set. I didn't know the camera guys. I didn't know the directors. I didn't know the producers. I didn't know where my room was, But I was going to be there shooting all day. I was the guy that had to keep the clock on time all day,
That's hard.
And it's a stressful situation. And you got to remember that, and I'm thankful for my, I lean on experience and that sort of thing. But the point I guess I'm trying to make here is that, one, you're never not nervous. You're never not intimidated by some of these environments. And the best I can tell you is, try not to let it consume you. Just try not to let the moment be bigger than you. And know that whatever happens, it's going to be all right, and there's another take, and just do the work and really prepare, and don't let the fear of the challenge make you not prepare. Really keep yourself honest that, at the end of the day, I went on set and I was able to say to myself, I did as much work as I could, And then at that point, whatever happens, happens,
So can you talk about that process before and how to keep that preparation going during all those distractions?
Yeah, to put it in context, we probably shot that scene for, I think we shot it probably for 3 hours, That's another thing too, is you've got to somehow find the right moment to peak, because you can't stay here for 3 or 4 hours. It wasn't a typical scene in that there are 2 distinct setups. So it's over my shoulder to you, and then it's over your shoulder to me or something. There's the 2 shot that sets everything up, and then it's over the shoulder. And then the other person, you can kind of be in the scene with the person, but you don't have to do your big emotional work when you're off camera. The thing with this one was, because there was so much movement, she and I were cutting back and forth on each other. They did it steady cam, and they did both scenes, although they focused more on her on one section and they focused more on me lighting wise in another section. You were in both takes. They were keeping takes of yours in both setups. Does that make sense? So there was never a time where I wasn't being filmed. And so what I really remember about that night was also there was a big break in between those. I don't think we had to go to lunch, but I think there was a big break in between those setups. So basically, one of the things I remember about that night was that it was just a very long period of time where I had to hold on to this. I had to find, and it's this thing here where you walk on. I'm killing my dad, I'm killing my mom, I'm killing my unborn child, I'm doing whatever I can at different moments so that the idea doesn't feel stale. And really, really good director. One of the few directors I felt like he could what was really cool was when he could tell I was getting really tired, he came up to me and he went it's like he gave me the energy. I remember this moment. It was very cool. He just kind of went we need you to be like this. It was something, he sort of he did this thing where it was so real in him. He had it. And then it's he took me off to the side and he just went oh, and he gave it to me like that. And I just, there's a few things that happen. One is that's a confidence boost because the director's there with you. And then it's just he just gave me the energy, and then I was sort of rejuvenated. And so I credit him with a big part of that scene coming out well. But you know, one of the weird things is you have to hit her but not hit her. You know what I mean? So you have to make sure that the slap looks real, and I've got to hold my arm up in a non-real way so that the camera sees it. And, you know, the thing is, the camera does a lot of work for you. You got to remember in those moments, like, the speed with which the camera sees that moment and the intimacy with which they see your emotions, they heighten that for you. So if it doesn't always feel your best, you know, trust that they will stop you if it's not working, you know. One of the things from Bill's class that was really, really important, it was a really great lesson for me. It was such a small thing, but it was such a great lesson, was I was doing, this was in the old place actually too, but I don't know what it was. It was very basic exercise. I read the paper, you know what I mean? And I was reading the paper and somebody came in and they had an emotional thing going on. But I sat there and I read the paper. And I remember for like a chunk of that scene, I was really in my head and I wasn't reading the paper. I was trying to read the paper, but I wasn't really reading it. I wasn't taking in the information from the paper. And it was done, and Bill was like, "That was great, Nick. You know, you really look like you were reading the paper." And I said, for about half the scene, I don't think I was reading the paper. I was really like freaked out. I was like, I wasn't really reading. And he was like, well, you know, sometimes it's not as, you know, sometimes you think people are seeing things that they're not, you know? And I think one of the things in that moment is you're going to go out of your head a lot. It's going to happen in scenes. Happens to me a lot when we're doing a take and somebody flubs a line, but they're not on camera. So for a second, the whole thing is thrown off, but it's on me. You know what I mean? So for a second, I think, they fucked up their line. Fucking asshole, you know? But they don't see that thought immediately. They only see you letting that thought consume you, you know? So if you take the thought and let it go and go back to the person and get back in it, they probably didn't see anything, you know? And I was trying to get back to reading the paper. So what he saw was a guy trying to read the paper. Maybe, you know, when we read the paper, we all get distracted sometimes. Maybe he saw me sort of like read the same thing twice. Well, sometimes I read the same thing twice, even when I'm not on stage, you know? So it's like, trust that, and so I guess the reason I free associated that was in that scene, I remember like, I don't feel angry right now. I don't feel like I'm in this, you know, I don't feel it, you know, but they either didn't use those takes or maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Did you watch it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I used to, when I was younger, I couldn't watch my stuff. That was when I was much more like freaked out, obsessed, like when I came in and saw him. But yeah. No, I'm pretty proud of it. You know, it came out, I feel like it came out well, you know. I mean, you know, people seem to have responded well to it, and I feel pretty good about it. I mean, I don't feel like, again, I look back on it, I feel like, I could do better, you know.
Was that one of those scenes that you were talking about, like you thought you dropped the ball on?
Yeah, totally. There were again, and remember, this is 3 or 4 hours of shooting the same thing. So you're doing the same fucking thing over and over and over and over, and you're like trying to be all like so full of like venom and this huge emotion, you know, and it's hard to hold on to those emotions or let them go and then get them back, because you can't hold on to it, right? You gotta like, okay, let it go, and then just trust that I'm gonna figure out a way to get it back. You know what I mean? Remember too, though, we perceive our memories of our life. You know, my life was spent 3 or 4 hours doing it, and I know for like a solid 2 hours, I didn't think the shit I was doing was good. But what they see is 5 minutes of that work, you know, 3 minutes of that work. They took the best 3 minutes and they put it on camera. And you know, that should be a comfort for actors. You know what I mean? That should be a comfort for us. Okay, there's going to be 2 hours of a 4-hour shoot. where I'm not going to feel great. But if I get 2 hours of feeling really good, then there are moments there. There's real stuff there. But I mean, for me, I can't let go of, whatever, I can, but I'm just remembering, like, I'm proud of the scene, but I just remember, the times where I didn't feel good, and I think, how can I get 3 hours of 4 hours better? You know what I mean? How do I get better at that? Her first, she's right behind you.
Really quick. So,
sure.
When you were with Bill, I know that you mentioned it once, but did you leave more than once thinking, like, what the fuck, was that good?
Oh my God. I probably,
like, confused, like, all day?
I've said this before when I've come in and done this with another class, but like, I think I probably left Bill's class about 7 times and wept in my car, just like, because there's this part of me that I really, I just want to be better. You know what I mean? I really, and at times that obsession to be better or perfect or something, what is it with these air quotes? But it can, that's been one of my struggles is self-punishment, really. But I left, I didn't know so much, before I came here. I just did this little thing for Grey's Anatomy, and my character, like, he can't stop this woman from dying in this surgery. And he cries at the end of it, and it's a scene where she walks in, and it's like, it's her point of view, and she sees me crying, and the other doctor, so the camera goes from me to there, and back to her. And I'm like in my mask, and so there's not a lot of high stakes in a lot of levels, right? They can barely even see me. I'm over to the side. But I had to shoot all day, and then the last scene of the day was this scene. And I knew, for me, it was an exercise where I knew it was low stakes, because again, it wasn't like going to be this huge close-up on me, and I've got to deliver. It's like I'm a part of this thing, but I have an opportunity. It's an opportunity to work on something that's been an Achilles heel for me. And I told myself, I am not going to think about this fucking scene ever until I get to that scene. I'm just going to trust that I'm going to come up with something in the moment, and I'll get emotional, and it'll work. And if it doesn't work, it's okay, And truly, I was able to cry. And it was such a reminder that, like, I would spend an entire day coming up with independent thoughts and things about, okay, well, if I kill my dad like this, and, this, and then if I bring it into that moment, if I have all these different ideas, I bring it in right then, and that'll work. And, maybe it makes you feel good while you're thinking about it, but then you've thought about it, and you've played it out, and I've played it out for so long before I get to that moment, it doesn't have any value to me anymore, So the other thing at the end of this is, which sort of stems off your question, is, relaxation. And this is what Bill wrote his email to me about. And he sent me that thing that, I don't know, were one of you the students that sent me that Bill Murray clip about relaxation? Was that one of you guys? Did he send that to you?
Yeah.
It's really great, right? It's just fun. It's fun life. Be relaxed. Like, enjoy life. Take what's in front of you. Play with what's in front of you. True. I mean, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of practice. And that's why you're here. That's why you're here in class. I mean, that's why I did this for 3 years. I came in and then still had all of this to learn through the actual acting, through working. I had so much more to learn. But that's why you're here, is that you come in here and failing here or being ashamed of how you do things here. This is why you create a safe environment where someone's going to tell you the truth, but you don't have to go home and feel like your livelihood isn't at stake. Your money isn't at stake. It's not going to be sent out across the nation, broadcast. Like, it's a place for you to succeed and fail and try all that stuff. So you learned a big thing here. The most important thing there is you've got to learn for yourself when to start. You can't start too late, but you can't start too early, you know? And you've just got to, I think the biggest thing is not necessarily prepping the emotion, but just understanding what the scene is about. If you understand what the scene is about, then you can be relaxed and let the scene do the work for you a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, I used to be so obsessed about preparing an emotion for something. And it's really important, you know, it's important to prepare depending on what the scene is and have the emotion before you go in. But you can't just have the emotion and not know what you have to do in the scene either. So I find like, not that that's what you're saying, but I guess what I'm saying is the scene can be an anchor for you to where you don't need to maybe spend so much time, an hour ahead of time, you know. Know that you're going to get a take, you know. You'll get a take. You can kind of warm up. It's okay to warm up. It's okay to trust that you get to warm up. Trust that there's a reason why they always shoot the wide first, you know. They always shoot the wide first for a very specific reason. It gives everybody a chance to rehearse. They don't really need to see anything important other than there are 3 people standing in this room, you know, and they'll show you that maybe once or twice in the scene when you see it cut together. But you got 3 or 4 takes to kind of like warm up a little bit, you know, play around with a couple of different things. And so all I can say is, you know, just you have to learn for yourself, because it's personal to all of us, you know. You have to learn for yourself what that is. And then also, I would say too, use the flat line. You can get angry at flatlining, right? Yeah. Then now you're angry, right? You can be like, you can now channel that anger into something else. The story goes like this. Robert Duvall had to walk on really frustrated and agitated every night. And so what he would do was, he would take a nap right as the play started. He'd be asleep. And then he would force the stage manager or one of the stage PAs to shake him awake really violently right before he went on stage. So right before he went on stage, he'd be frazzled and kind of pissed, and he'd be searching for his lines a little bit. And that's how he entered in every time. And I tell you that because that was, for me, that was like one of those, what preparation is that asshole doing? You know what I mean? All he's doing is sleeping, but he's getting this great result. It's like this brilliant trick.
He's a very truthful actor, so if he's not up there, he has said, when I'm on, there's no one more truthful than I am. And a statement of fact, Duvall, he's always truthful.
At the end of the day, you don't have control over what they use when it comes to television or film. The director, you want to serve the director as best as possible, because if you give what you think is the best performance what you think is the correct performance for this scene, but it doesn't end up serving the director's vision, it will not serve you in the end. You know, the director is going to cut together the scene they want. And so you're caught a little bit, right? You want to do something the way you want to do it. So you have to negotiate, you know? You have to be confident going, all right, what are my reasons, you know? It can't be irrational. This is another one of those moments where I sort of talk about, like, no one's out to get you. You know what I mean? Take a moment and go, okay, well, what are my valid reasons for wanting to do it this way? And go up, take that moment, find that moment where the director's not really busy, and it could be an hour before the scene starts, you know? They're shooting another scene or something like that, and he has a break in between that scene. And go, or she, and go find that moment and be like, listen, you know, I just want to talk. I mean, again, this is me oftentimes. The reason I say it like this is because I will try to get the director's idea of the scene before we start. I would rather be on the same page with the director with 20 minutes to think about it than in the middle of the scene going, hold on, wait, you want me to do this in an entirely different way than I prepared it, and I have to do it exactly right now. Like, that's why I like to go up to the producers or the directors earlier, find that moment where the stakes aren't high and we don't need to shoot this right now, and talk about it real quick. Like, just so you know, like, this is my idea of the scene, you know, do you have any other opinions about this? Do you feel like we're on the same page? You know, I try not to pester. Directors are really, really busy and they have very little time, but they'll often give you that spot, you know? And so if you are caught in that moment where they're kind of pushing you in another way you don't want to go, you know, another idea is to just kind of say, like, is it all right if we just try it my way once? You know, can I just try it my way this once and see how it feels, and talk to the other actor a little bit, see how they feel? And then I would say you have to do what the director needs you to do or wants you to do. You know, at the end of it, like, they don't hire people who don't play ball, you know? I mean, and we have a number of examples of actors and actresses who are very famous, who are notorious for being difficult on set, and they all of a sudden are not as famous as they used to be. At the end of the day, you are a part of a team of people who have to make this thing work, you know? And, you know, you have to have self-respect, and it's important for you to have the reasons why you're doing things in the same way that you have the reasons why you're making choices on all your scenes in this class. And if you have great reasons, I have absolutely convinced directors that my way is the way to do it. Because they're like, oh, you know what, I like that choice, actually. You know, that's really interesting. I didn't see it that way, but yeah, let's give it a shot. And then there's absolutely been other times where I went in thinking one thing, and then they gave me something, and I went, you know what, that's better. You know, that really is better. That I was thinking too much about, like, a result or something, and really what they needed me to be just a bit more relaxed, and a bit more like not put too much on this, let the words do the work for me. You know what I mean? So I say that as a way of, like, there's a lot that we can always learn from. There's something that both sides, there's a reason why that
it's a collaboration.
Yeah, that's a reason why that collaboration's been around for thousands of years, you know, is because we can't see outside of ourselves. We shouldn't certainly be looking outside of ourselves at ourselves, but they're not the ones in the part, you know, so we build it together. I think that's a really important point. I think that auditioning is its own thing. You know, it's not that you can't use Meisner there, but it's that you can't depend on anyone else, really. You know, if you are lucky enough to have a really good reader, then you can use that, you know, but it is your job to deliver what the scene needs to be as best you can, knowing that you might not get anything from the other person. I mean, I can't, you know, and I'm sure you're talking about this moment, but, like, this is the camera, and they're like, sorry, we don't have a reader today. It's just going to be me, all right? But I'm going to be working the camera, so just make sure you're looking at me. All right, so so what are you doing here? Yeah? Uh-huh. So what, and wow, you're angry, you know? And they're never even looking at you, right? You have to somehow just trust yourself to give what you need to give. I mean, what the Meisner is doing is it's teaching you how to know when you're being real, right? It's not only about everything I get is from the other person. It's also about practicing a bunch of times and finding that place where you know you're acting in a real way. And if you're in a scene with somebody else who you know is not acting in a real way, your job is not to act like them. Your job is to remember, I know what it's like to be real. I know what it's like when I was on stage. I know what Meisner's taught me. Do what I need. That's where it becomes that thing where it's like, it should be second nature. You find here that part of you where you know what it's like to be relaxed and real, and then you have to bring that in and do that in these isolated environments where you're not actually doing Meisner. You know, you're not actually doing it with the casting director. Some casting directors are good, you know, and they'll really give you a lot. I'm less anxious than I used to be. I don't have to work a second job for my money. And those are huge differences, right? Just massive, massive quality of life differences. when you're able to work and pay your bills with the work, you know. Those are huge differences, and so they play out in my life in ways like I have more free time to focus on the work when it's time to focus on the work. If I have an audition, and like I talked about with Gotham, it's not like I had to work a night shift or something and then I had to go in for that audition, right? Like I could literally just clear my schedule and do the work. Those are huge assets, and there's definitely something to be said that my quality of life is definitely better, in that I am able to do other things. I have more freedom to do other things. But as far as like the mindset of being an actor, the mindset of chasing, you know, of working, of trying to achieve, like that for me, although I think I'm less obsessive, and I have been able to sort of internalize a certain amount of success, that I know that now that I have a little bit more visibility than I've ever had in my career, that does a little bit of the work for me. So those are beneficial. Like people can say, I've seen you on Masters of Sex and I liked you. So I walk into a room and people go, oh, I like him because I saw him on this thing. So I come in not at square one, you know. I come in at like 1 or 2, you know. People are like a little bit, they want to see, they're that much more receptive to seeing me do well. But the having to prove yourself will never change. Having to do the work for the audition and go in and win the job will never change. I went all the way through pilot season this year. I tested 4 different times, got the 4th one. It was the How I Met Your Dad spinoff, and it was, we did that show. Everybody thought it was going to go. Everybody thought it's a slam dunk. It even got released on the trades that it was picked up, and then an hour later it got retracted, and then it didn't go. So now certainly
tell them about how many pilots you did.
Oh,
none of them sold.
I did 7. Masters of Sex was my 8th pilot, and the first 7 never went to series. So the first, it's true.
He had that distinction.
Yeah. I remember sitting at dinner in New York as we were about to start shooting. When you book a pilot, usually there's like a kind of big dinner that the producers put out for you, and you all get together and sort of meet each other and that sort of thing. And we were in New York, and I remember I was sitting between Lizzie and the woman that wrote it, and I was like, yeah, actually, I'm really excited to, you know, this one feels really good. The last 7 I've done have failed. And they were like, don't you ever fucking say that again. You're going to jinx me, you know. And actually, Lizzie was the one that was very cool. She's like, well, she's like so cocky, you know. She's like, well, what did she say? She was like, well, don't worry, I'm going to fix that for you, or something like that. You know what I mean? And it was like, I was like, thank you, please do. And then I did the 9th one, which was How I Met Your Dad, and then that one failed. You know, and so, you know, I guess the aspect I'm bringing up right now is there are definitely quality of life improvements, but the business doesn't get easier. There's never a time where I sit back and go, I don't have to prove myself, or I don't have to work for it. Does that make sense? So like that you have to get, that's another thing you have to accept about the job, is that you have to constantly find ways to keep yourself motivated and realize that this is such a long journey. You know, once you start the engine doesn't turn off. You don't turn the engine off at some point and then everything is okay or easy, you know. I really hope you understand that I'm recognizing like the significant differences that I have by getting to work and pay for my life by acting, which is like really, really something I value. But you're not going to be happier than you are right now. You know, you're not going to be happier. If you're not happy now, it's not because you're not acting. You know what I mean? It's not because like you didn't get the job or whatever. It's because you're unhappy with something in your life, and you got to fix that. You know what I mean? Whatever that is, if it's relationship or your family or something, that's the thing that that's the stuff you never get rid of. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, I will say there has never been there's nothing harder about what I've done than pilot season. That is by far the hardest, because as I've told you, I really have a high standard of preparation for myself, and you are a lot of times just not given any time. I mean, sometimes on a Wednesday night, I'll get 2 auditions for Thursday, and I will have just done an audition on Wednesday. You know, a lot of times I want to like chill out. Like I want to have the adrenaline my adrenaline. By the way, just as a sidebar, I don't like to say like I get nervous before an audition anymore. You know, I started realizing that those nerves are the adrenaline that we as actors, that's like our magic, right? Like, so embrace your nerves. Your nerves are adrenaline that's giving you like that extra supernatural energy you need to focus really, be focused and pump your emotions up. And, so embrace, don't get nervous, don't get freaked out by the nerves. Remember that the nerves is like adrenaline is good for you. You know what I mean? So that's just a sidebar. But someone asked Sinatra if he still got. I was actually you told me this bit, and I was gonna do this bit. So please do it. No. I'm not. I just mean it's awesome that you remember it, because you're the guy that told me this bit 10 years ago. But go on.
Said, do you still get nervous before you sing? He said, I'd be worried if I didn't. Yeah, I just told that to somebody the other day. I think it's great. It's because Sinatra was the essence of cool. It's not just like a famous person. It's like the coolest person that you can think of. And he was like, no, nervous is like, that reminds me that I give a shit, So that's like, that I remember that was like a great, like, okay, yeah, I can't be mad at the nerves then. The nerves are good, right? What's good about them? Well, they give you this energy. I remember one year I tested 9 times and I got the 9th one. And it's twice happened to me where I very truly believe that the very last audition that was available to me, I got. And I was that close to not booking a pilot that year. And, for me, that's become an important part of my annual paycheck in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I built my life around the pilot gives me a big chunk and then it fails. And then I get to do a few episodes in the fall. And then that pays for my year, So, I mean, it's just, all I can say is you just have to, it's very nerve-wracking. I have often walked away from auditions and sat in the car and just been so embarrassed, even this last season, just like, I'm not prepared enough, and something happens in the room, or I know I'm not right for this character, but the problem is pilot season, you don't have enough time to think about whether or not you're right. You just have to go. It's like, if I think for an hour about whether or not I want to do this, that's one of the 3 hours left I had in the night to memorize. So, I basically just go, you know what? Screw it. I'll do it, and then if something happens, great. And all I can say is just know that it's going to be really, really difficult and really, really tiring, and treat yourself right. Don't go party on Saturday night. Don't drink too much. Don't go out. Don't stay out late. If your friend comes over and is like, I really need to talk to you, if it's really, really important, then you can give that time to them. But just, you have to recharge when you can. I mean, a lot of people, they have a tough week and they go, fuck it, and they just want to go balls to the wall. And then they're just hungover all day Sunday, and then they got to start it again on Monday. And it's a privilege for me to get to audition as much as I do. It's a real privilege, and I try not to lose sight of that because I'm thankful that I've had a lot of failed pilots. I'm thankful for that. I'm pissed about it sometimes, but I mean, I'm also thankful for it. And so, I guess it's a matter of not taking things for granted.
I mean, if you're lucky enough to go out for a pilot, like, treat it with reverence, you know what I mean? I was really young. I was really young. When I was very, very young, I wanted to be a priest. I was raised Catholic, and my first memory, first grade, I have this T-shirt that had us first graders like with watercolor, like draw who you want to be when you grow up. And some people are like athlete, and some people are like astronaut, and I was like priest. And but I think the reason is that at a very young age, what I like about that is at a very young age, I knew I wanted to be in front of people, and I had a lot of reverence for it. It's still to me today a very spiritual act. Even this process right now of me talking to you like this, to me it's that's why I sort of said thank you earlier. For me, this is a kind of spiritual exercise. I don't want to lie, I've never wanted to lie. I was never a good liar. And a lot of times people used to tell me like, well, you'll never be a good actor if you're not a good liar. And then I came here and it's like, it's not lying. In fact, it's telling the truth. It's a place where you can tell the truth all the time. You just have to do it under these imaginary circumstances, And so that to me was like...
It's lying truthfully.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It doesn't feel... for whatever reason, being in front of the lights has always been a place where I felt very... I felt okay being myself. I don't know why, But it was at a very young age. And like when I was 11, I started doing speech, competitive speech and stuff. Forensics, they call it in some places. And I like won some trophies, and so I got that like kind of feedback, And then I started doing plays at my theater at high school all the time and got a lot of good feedback. And then when I was a senior in high school, the movie Election came to town. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, and Alexander Payne and I went to the same high school. I mean, obviously Alexander's older than me, but he and I are alumni of the same all-male Jesuit high school. And he put out side scripts to all the theater departments around the area. And I went and auditioned with some friends that I did the plays with, and I got a job in Election. Has anybody seen Election? Do you remember me in that part? Does anybody remember me? I'm the guy that counts the ballots. So that was like a 10-minute role in this movie when I was 17. And I came out for the premiere when I was a freshman in college. That's when the movie came out. And then I got some representation, and that's how I kind of got in. I came out, I did Meisner with Bill for those 3 years. Then from like 26 to 29, I didn't really study and I didn't do any theater. And that was during my probably most, that was pre-therapy, so those were my worst years. And and part of that was I was really getting into this mode for whatever reason that I was like, I don't want to do anything else except wait for the right audition, because like at any moment I might miss something, you know what I mean? Stay in a class or go do a play or work on something with friends. Like try to do things that don't have your livelihood at stake all the time. That was for a while there. I was like, all the acting I was doing was either auditioning or it was for a paycheck. And it just felt like, and it's not always really fulfilling work. So, it wasn't good. So I would say stay in it as long as you can, or as often as you can. Roles that require me to be intelligent or require me to be mature or even more fun, require me to be hurt or jealous or angry. I love those roles because I definitely battle jealousy and anger and insecurities, or I misinterpret something someone says and it makes me very angry and I get emotional. Like we all have that, right? I mean, doesn't everybody have that? And so I want to do that, I don't want to just be like the nice guy. I mean, truly what I want is what I have. I want to show that I feel like is a character that is fun, that is different from week to week. My character is not going to be the same guy doing the same things every week. And I want to have a consistent job. You know, I want to be happy doing the work, and I want it to be consistent. And then I want to I want a family. You know what I mean? I also want my other life. You know what I mean? I want that life now. I'm ready. I'm like ready for that now. If you could be happy doing anything else besides acting, then you should pursue that. And the reason is because if you're angry and you're unhappy and you're sitting there going, I should have made it. I should have been something. Like, I don't want to be where I am. Please check in with yourself and remember that you can do theater and you can do acting and you can develop your material in other cities. You know, you can go other places where it's not so hard to live. It doesn't take as much money, or, you know, the competition isn't as fierce. You can go do theater in Milwaukee, which is where I went to college, and you can do really great theater there. And you can like work an okay job and like get a house, you know, and like have a family and still do theater for free at night, but you can have a house, you know? Like, that's important, you know what I mean? That's important to your life. So
Meisner said, if you become an actor, you'll never own a house.
Yeah, right. It's true, man. It's true. That's true. It's like pretty much for everybody that's true. Are we doing the thing that makes us happy? Like, are we doing the best we can to facilitate the most pleasant living experience for ourselves, you know? And, you know, a huge part of that for me was like, don't compare yourself to other people, you know? Don't try to play the competition game, the jealousy game. It'll eat you alive. You'll never win. You'll never be good enough. You'll never be, you know, you'll never be rich enough. You'll never be successful enough. And so then you ask yourself, okay, well, if money and success is not going to do it, then what is, you know?
Love your work.
Yeah.
If you can.
Yeah. You love your work.
I love it.
I mean, he's still doing it, you know? He's got a really good class. It makes me so happy that there's like a really good class. 42. I mean, as I was raised, you know, we're all supposed to retire at 43, die at 50. You know what I mean? That's the way it is, right? What is it? Still the 16th century, isn't it? Isn't that? Die at 50, and we're all nobody gets past 4 feet tall. There's not enough protein in the diet. Yeah, man. I'll say one last thing, just to let you know a fun little tidbit of how I met Bill, why I started working with him. This was that time period when I was, when I first moved out here, I was still hung up on this relationship. This girl broke my heart, and I deserved it because I broke some other girls' hearts. But I was really hung up, and it was to the point where like I couldn't even cry about it anymore. Like I couldn't cry in my personal life when things made me sad. So I was like, something was wrong. And somebody had told me about Meisner, and I went to this one guy who is down by the Santa Monica airport. I don't remember who that guy is, but
Ruskin.
Yeah, I didn't like him very much. I don't know if anybody studied with him, but I got a bad vibe from him. And then I came and saw Bill, and I kind of went into this thing, as you now know how I talk, like just talking nonstop, like just talking about my personal life and this relationship, and I can't fucking cry. And I had just had an audition for a scene in a show, and I was supposed to cry, and I couldn't do it. And I went into the audition, and I was embarrassed because I walked out, I couldn't cry. And I just was going off and off and off, and he sits behind the desk, and he's just like, I can give that to you. You know? And I just sort of took a deep breath, and I was like, all right, man, I'll see you Monday. You know, it was just like, I knew that I had found the right place, you know, and because I was way up in my head, and that's what those years were here for me. You know, it was about getting out of my head and getting attached and to each other and the work, and those were really big 3 years for me. So it's cool to see a really good class, nice big class, and glad to see that you're still doing well and that that you're still getting a lot out of it, you know? That's probably a good place to end it, right? Cool.